just shot Charlie.
Tyler Robinson's defense team, Michael Burt, the high-profile San Francisco attorney, is related to the AV guy who took the SD cards out when Charlie was shot. And Candace has been saying since day one, why'd you go and take them out?
First, the defense conflict. Michael Burt, high-profile San Francisco attorney, is directly related to Terryl Farnsworth, the TPUSA AV guy who yanked SD cards post-hit.
Our list of Turning Point lies is just getting longer every day.
Turning Point USA is now being accused of paying for Tyler Robinson's legal defense. And honestly, if this is true, this is about to get real ugly. Because according to new reporting, the organization closest to Charlie Kirk may now be financially tied to the man accused of killing him. Yes, that man. And the detail people can't stop talking about? It all starts with someone who was literally at the crime scene. His name is Terryl Farnsworth. He's not a lawyer. He's not an investigator. He's the Turning Point USA AV staffer who, immediately after the shooting, was seen removing SD cards from the cameras positioned behind Charlie Kirk's stage. And he rushed to literally take a video right after.
They just shot Charlie. They just shot Charlie. They just shot Charlie.
At first, Farnsworth claimed police told him to remove them. Then police said they never gave that instruction. Then he changed his story again, saying he was afraid someone might steal the footage.
And about why he took them. At first he said the cops told him, and then they said the cops didn't tell you that. And then he said, oh no, we did it because I was afraid they were going to steal them. Well, you would take the whole camera. You wouldn't just take the SD card. You're afraid people are going to steal the camera.
To make things worse, the crime scene itself was paved over just days later.
First, the defense conflict. Michael Burt, high-profile San Francisco attorney, is directly related to Terryl Farnsworth, the TPUSA AV guy who yanked SD cards post-hit and contaminated the crime scene, which that's what he did. But that's what they wanted to do. That's why they paved over the crime scene 2 days after it. They wanted to contaminate the crime scene.
And for months, that was treated as strange, but isolated, until now. Because this week, independent researchers and Jimmy Dore both began pointing out a connection no one had publicly flagged before. Terryl Farnsworth's cousin is Michael Burt, a high-profile San Francisco defense attorney. And more importantly, he's one of the lawyers currently representing Tyler Robinson.
Terryl Farnsworth's cousin is a key attorney on the shooter Tyler Robinson's defense team. What?
Come on.
Come on.
Now, let that sink in for a second. The man who removed evidence from the cameras is directly related to a man sitting on the legal team of the accused shooter.
So it seems like they're setting him up as a patsy, and even with his defense team, we had somebody come on talk about how it was weird that the court is appointing this defense lawyer, and the defense lawyer was not interested in facts and stuff.
How can Tyler Robinson receive an independent defense when one of his own attorneys is family connected to the person who controlled the cameras and handled the evidence after the shooting? That alone would already be grounds for recusal in most high-profile cases. But that's not all, because the same family tree leads to a second connection that's even harder to explain away. Michael Burt's father-in-law is Dwayne Burt, the former executive vice president and chief operating officer of Duncan Aviation. And Duncan Aviation is the exact company linked to the Egyptian registered planes that were being tracked around the time of the shooting.
Terrell's father-in-law, Dwayne Burt, held top executive roles at Duncan Aviation's Utah facility, where those Egyptian registered planes flagged in Charlie's threats and pre-attack searches were located the day of the execution. Dwayne's expertise and connections in elite aviation circles put his family smack in the middle of the Egyptian planes mystery. Coincidence? Or direct access to the tools needed for a sophisticated hit.
Now, to be clear, the aviation angle is still contested. Some analysts say the plane data is circumstantial. Others say it lines up too cleanly to ignore. But here's what is not disputed. Duncan Aviation is a real company. Dwayne Burt really held a top executive role there. And the same family now appears connected to both the crime scene and the defense team, which creates a picture that, at minimum, looks like a massive conflict of interest.
Demand that Michael Burt recuse himself immediately so Tyler gets a real defense. And force the FBI to investigate these Farnsworth-Burt connections now before the truth gets buried forever. Justice for Charlie starts with exposing the network.
But now we're not talking about random mistakes, which raises a final question that no one at Turning Point has properly answered yet. If Turning Point USA has no involvement in Tyler Robinson's defense, then why does his legal team keep tracing back to Turning Point USA insiders? Now, while all of these connections were quietly coming out, something else started happening at the exact same time. And this part is what made a lot of people realize that Turning Point USA is actively trying to control the narrative. Because over the past week, Turning Point began sending cease-and-desist letters to independent creators who were questioning their finances, their security failures, and their handling of the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Turning Point USA has decided to send a cease and desist to a smaller YouTube creator by the name of Wolves and Finance. This creator took to a 20-minute video to discuss this cease and desist letter. In so many words, his channel really focuses on breaking down finances, audits, things like that in terms of business. Well, in this letter sent to Wolves and Finance, basically call him a liar.
One of them was Zach DeGregorio, who runs the channel Wolves and Finance.
This week, I received a letter from Turning Point titled Demand to Cease and Desist Defamatory Comments. This is the first step when someone sues you for defamation.
He publicly revealed that Turning Point's lawyers demanded he retract statements about their finances and their security procedures at the Utah Valley University event.
In the letter, they order me to, please confirm that you will publicly correct your false statements immediately. This is not what I was going to talk about this week, but Turning Point is demanding that I communicate their statements publicly. So here we go. They include a whole list of statements they claim are false that I have made in my videos about Turning Point. Now, I'm not interested in spreading false information. So I'm glad that Turning Point reached out to me because if I said something wrong, I am happy to correct it.
And instead of this shutting the story down, it did the exact opposite because Candace Owens immediately jumped in. Candace didn't just defend Zach. She openly suggested that someone inside Turning Point USA is sabotaging Erica Kirk. In her own words, she said, "Difficult to put into words how terrible of an idea it was for Turning Point USA to send out this cease and desist letter. I'm at the point where I think someone internally absolutely detests Erica and permanently feeds her terrible ideas. It's the only thing that makes sense at this point." And then she went even further. She openly offered her consulting services to Turning Point, saying, "I again offer my consulting services to TPUSA. For a monthly retainer, we can end this corporate show." Now here's why this matters. Candace used to work closely with this exact political ecosystem. She knows how these organizations operate, and she is now saying in public that their legal strategy makes no sense unless someone is panicking, because sending legal threats in the middle of an unresolved assassination investigation is not how innocent organizations behave. That is how organizations behave when they are trying to narrow the conversation. And then there's the drone admission. For months, Turning Point denied any unusual aerial surveillance at the event. Then, for the very first time, they quietly admitted that drones were present.
Turning Point's chief security person talking about the day that Charlie Kirk was murdered. I point out the massive contradiction where he says they were not allowed to fly drones. Then I show the interview with Frank Turek where he says he was watching drone footage with Charlie Kirk. This part is breaking news because I'm not aware this has ever been discussed. The lawyer in this letter says the following: there was no discrepancy. UVU prohibited Turning Point USA from flying drones for security purposes during the event, but did allow a Turning Point USA media production drone to briefly fly over the location before the event to collect limited B-roll footage.
Which is an insane detail when you think about it. You had drones in the air, but no adequate protection on the ground, at an event where the most high-profile conservative speaker in the country was on stage.
That is the official explanation from Turning Point's lawyer. My honest opinion? is I do not believe that.
And Candace pointed that out too. She openly mocked how absurd it was that drones were used for media, but not for security.
And he basically said, we didn't have drones because, looking at the rooftops, because I wasn't allowed to have drones, right? We just were not allowed to have drones that day. A lot of you emailed us and said, that was a lie, actually.
And suddenly, Turning Point doesn't look like an innocent bystander in this case anymore. They look like an organization trying to control damage. Because once Candace Owens is publicly suggesting internal sabotage, and once Turning Point is threatening creators instead of releasing answers, the question becomes very simple. What exactly are they afraid will come out if this case is allowed to play out slowly and publicly?